Good afternoon, everyone. We can't take much more of what nature's throwing at us. Our infrastructure's not surviving these storms. And along with our infrastructure not able to handle the storms, now we have food inflation rearing its ugly head again. So let's dive into it. Here are the top 10 nations with the highest food inflation for the last month/year, and projections Q2 2025. Argentina is still looking at least 120% food inflation. That's more than doubling. That's not doable in America. We would have tremendous chaos if this were to happen. So look at all these other nations. What do you think's happening there? I'll come back to the chart in a second, but the probability of recession is elevated. This is by August of 2025 and previous, where it jumps above the 60 or the red line there. The percentage probability, 1974, 1980, 1983, and now. So if you think food's getting expensive, it's going to get more expensive. And then this is the Detroit Food Bank. All those cars lined up literally around the block. And what I noticed, though, is those are nice cars. If people with nice cars are coming to get food because they can't afford it, that's a big problem. And bringing it back to that same list again, maybe it's a bit easier to look at it in this fashion, a tabular form here. Argentina at the top, 183%, but they're looking for next year for that to cool down to 120. But then look at that top 10 list. And 6 of those are in Africa. Zimbabwe, South Sudan, Malawi, Nigeria, Angola, and Egypt. And I bring up Malawi because Malawi and Mozambique just got slammed by Cyclone Chido, making landfall. This is an absolutely massive cyclone. For us in the U.S., it would be from northern Georgia all the way down to southern Florida, the width of this thing, massive. That's since come into Zimbabwe, southern Africa, dropping a lot of rain. They really need the rain. The drought everywhere, but finally some rain comes, but the wind comes too. Look for you at some of the damage as the storm rolled on shore. Now the houses really, aren't built to certain standards that we would require in hurricane states. So build as you go there in Africa, whatever you can put up, and you can see it's been ripped apart. So the cleanup continues across a vast majority of that coastline. Now to put it in perspective for you, there's Mozambique. You can go to the site like, what's the true size? So you can take Mozambique, overlay it on the United States, although it's way offshore. I was just trying to match it up to our shoreline. It goes from all the way pretty much, like I would say, Pennsylvania, clear down to Cuba. That's how massive this is. Like the size of Africa is very deceiving on the maps. And then I did, but South Africa alone, look how much space this would take up. And that's all the way from like New York State way down into the panhandle of Florida, just South Africa. So when you start to look at it, I have been talking forever about the Sahel in North Africa becoming a new grain growing area for the planet as 45 North and 45 South, these areas start to go offline because of, what we're seeing right now. Have you heard about this movement toward better habits, an alternative to vaping and smoking, led by the sponsor of today's video, Fume. Meet Fume. It's not a game changer, it's a habit changer. This nifty little device keeps the routine but kicks the rut. Fume is all about that on the natural side of things. No nicotine, no vapor, just pure flavored air. And check out these cores. These things put out more flavor than the mint on my desk. My personal favorite is the maple pepper, and if you're into the mint, this is going to give you that freshness. And the black licorice to follow. The moonshine during the holidays in the hills of Tennessee. A system that utilizes no electronics, no combustion, and I support that. This season, give yourself the gift of better habits with Fume. Go to tryfume.com/adapt2030. And if you're lucky, you could even win one of Fume's limited edition gold-plated devices this holiday season. Again, tryfume.com/adapt2030, or scan that QR code on the screen to grab yours now and make someone's holiday unforgettable. And this is The United States laid inside the Sahel. We could put two complete United States in North Africa and the Sahel. That much grain growing capacity lies there, and the sandstone aquifers beneath their feet have never been tapped. So speaking of comparisons here, moon compared to the size of the United States. And I thought that is interesting. I thought it would be larger myself, but that little tiny thing affects our tides and moods and, howling at the moon, full moon. Something that small affects this big planet. But then I thought that we need to come to a different size comparison. So this is Saturn's North Pole. The six-sided storm we're all familiar with. But there, just even the center of it would blanket most of the United States. So if you're looking at comparisons in scale, this is just even in our own solar system, Saturn, not even Jupiter, just Saturn. And it really puts it into perspective. And focusing on the Northern California left coast, first ever tornado warning issued for San Francisco ever in the history of their weather keeping, which rolls back into the mid-1800s. That says something definitely has changed coastal, which would make sense with all these arc storms, otherwise known as atmospheric rivers, continuously in a non-stop bicycle chain moving in on the coast. And when I'm talking about this infrastructure, we have our road systems, ports, railways, etc., bridges, buildings, cities. It's just barely keeping up. So the wind has been so heavy in so many places on the planet that we've actually had to close our roads or ports because of this. So here you go. Northern California, extreme winds, atmospheric river caused trucks, accidents, highway closures. Bay Area slammed with heavy winds. Viejo, trees down, power cuts, and you start to see, well, you can't even drive on the roads because the winds are so ferocious and fierce. Yeah, that happens rarely, but now it seems to be a common thing. And then Canada also hit with the exact same thing. Another day or two later, BC, just ferocious winds, no travel going on. And this seems to be the pattern all the way from BC down into Mexico off the Pacific. Now, keeping you with a nice tight cyclonic spin below Australia. Storm from Antarctica ripping through. So this is Veracruz, Mexico, and what you're looking at is a ship here. So as we have some of our largest tugboats that cannot keep this thing from blowing ashore and ripping its mooring lines. These 4 tugs could not keep that thing from coming ashore. This is what I'm talking about. Whatever is here is far surpassing even our largest machinery. These tugs themselves are the largest class. Unless you get into oil and gas drilling in something of that magnitude where they're pulling rigs out. Otherwise, I think we've reached the apex of what we can develop. In case in point, okay, ice flow happens every year, not this early, usually in March or April, but not normally in December. Ice flow, and you're like, okay, that's going, okay, now it's coming through the town. Now it's starting to get into neighborhoods. Blocking off roads, homes are destroyed, property damage, and when you're looking at it from this viewpoint, that's just not an ice flow. That just damaged our town. So you just have to wonder how many more instances of this will be happening before insurance companies literally say no more. We just can't. It's costing too much to insure the planet. Now there's going to be non-insurable assets. But the way our legalese has been written, you must carry insurance if you have a loan out on it with the bank. So now we're going to have to start rewriting law, I do believe, because of the extremes where they can't take zero value and just make everybody leave a town, for example. That would bankrupt industries as well. So there's going to have to be some acknowledgement of the changes and the way that you either can or cannot insure your home. And this is where our world has come to. The largest of our machines are no longer able to withstand or battle Mother Nature. It's just the beginning. It's definitely going to increase now through 2030, hence the Adapt 2030 channel. We have to adapt our food growing strategies before 2030, but also now it looks that we're going to have to adjust our infrastructure and road system, ports, etc. to keep up with these changes. We need the supply chain to still move. But in these intense environments, and superstorms is a great word to use, it's making that more and more and more unreliable. And then maybe that's the way the world's supposed to turn anyway. But I do thank you for watching. And if you're in the market for storable foods, 3-month emergency food supply, Adapt 2030, and My Patriot Supply, that link's in the description box below. Every purchase you make helps keep this information flowing. Also, check out civilizationcycle.com to sign up for show notes and listen to the latest episodes. See you next time. Bye for now.